podcast called Jellison Podcast.
He probably doesn't remember this at all.
Work together. It's easy.
This is kind of real. Like, holy shit.
And so it's really cool to get to be a part of that.
Hey, you know how it is, Bill. Hey, when
you now tune into the biggest ever.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
What's up, everyone? We're back with episode 161 of the Jellison Podcast. Today, very special guest joining me again for the second time, co-host of the Role Player, Pro Hooper, Jordan Taylor. Jordan, how are you?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you having me back again. I had a good time last time.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you saying yes and making the time to do this.
Always.
Like we were talking a little bit before, I mean, you guys have been killing it, you and Anthony, with the podcast. We actually talked about that after you came on the last time. We just talked back and forth about it a little bit, but how's that been to kind of get back into things with that?
It's been dope, man. Anthony is good. No pun intended. Anthony Goods is he's a dope person, man. He went to Stanford, smart dude, was a great hooper too, and you know what they're doing over at Swish Cultures is pretty cool. You know, I don't know a ton about the social media way, so to be able to kind of join up on the podcast side of it and learn from him has been pretty fun. So it's been dope. I can't complain. We've got some good guests too. Got to talk to some cool people. So just keep trying to grow it and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Swish Cultures is changing the game. Them and like overseas fits, and there's a bunch of different things that are not only highlighting like NBA guys, but overseas guys as well, which has been like a consistent theme. Whenever I have overseas guys on the podcast, they talk about like that stigma and not getting the shine that the NBA guys get. And so it's good to see. I mean, you guys are helping highlight other overseas players and things like that.
Man, I think it's dope to highlight the overseas guys for sure and kind of talk about the stigma, but also kind of remove the stigma at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of great things about overseas basketball in a lot of different ways. But then not only overseas guys, just to get to highlight some of the, for lack of a better term, like the B-list, C-list, whatever, D-list NBA guys. Because you know, obviously you have platforms like Uninterrupted with LeBron and you know, even The Ringer, Bill Simmons. You had Old Man and the Three, but you don't get to hear from the guys that are the 7th to 10th man on the bench, or the 10th to 12th man on the bench, and kind of hear their stories. And one thing we always talk about in the Role Player is like the professional level overseas and NBA. Like all of us, like 98% of us are feel like we're alphas. We at least feel like that. So it's like to not get that shine. Sometimes it's a little frustrating, like it's a little bruising to the ego, I guess. But so we just try and like highlight that group of people and talk about their stories and you know how they fit in with the A-list guys and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, some of the guys you just recently had on, like Deshaun and Bacon. I mean, those are absolute studs when it comes to basketball. And like they've kind of not fallen out of favor, but like the casual fan doesn't really keep up with them and like what they're doing and the stories that they have to tell.
Yeah, no question. It's like especially once you go overseas, it's kind of like you're forgotten, but it's also like there's like you said, the stigma of like you're just not good. You're not good enough, and you're not that great. But it's like realistically, you're still amongst the best. If you play EuroLeague, or really in a lot of places, you're still amongst the best 1,000 basketball players, 1,500 basketball players in the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe even higher for some of those guys. Like we had Shane Larkin on. Shane is amongst the top 450 in the world. He's just not in the NBA because like you're not going to convince me that there's a rookie coming in this year who's about to be the 29th pick that's better than Shane Larkin, but he's about to be a part of the 450. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, to your point, yeah, all these dudes, we are incredibly elite and talented. So for us, it's just nice to highlight the backstories, the talent they have, the business side of the game, the personal and emotional side of the game as well. When you're not only in the NBA, but also when you're not a superstar in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. And I can't go back and pinpoint exactly who I had on to kind of like push me in that to have more overseas guys on, but I'm so glad that I did, because I hear all these different stories and and all these things, and then you start going and looking at the scores and watching some of the games, and you're like, oh shit, I remember him from college because if you're like a huge college basketball fan, you're gonna you like overseas because that's a lot of those studs that didn't go to the NBA, didn't get the opportunity, whatever. They're overseas, absolutely killing it.
Yep, no doubt, no doubt. And there's like you said, there's a lot of them. Like you said, Deshaun has been, he was top 10 in EuroLeague in scoring as an American. And one thing about the EuroLeague is I think I don't want to compare the two in this way, but in terms of like politics, it's very difficult for Americans to find a style that really suits their game. Normally in Europe, most guys you're fitting in, especially as like you're trying to find your place on the team. So to be able to do stuff like Shane has done, like Deshaun has done, is really crazy. The NBA, you're finding your spot as well, but it's like NBA is a faster game. You're going to get more shots. So it's like you can go get you 15, and if you're playing 30 minutes, you can go get you 15 and 7 in the NBA just off of, volume and all that. Whereas Europe, you could be really good if you're playing on a good team. You might most guys, you're only playing 21 minutes a game. 25 minutes a game. So if you're going out top 10 and scoring like in that, then it's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. And then I think that we might be getting away from overseas getting that shine because you don't see those high schoolers going over there like Brandon Jennings did or Emmanuel Mudiay or guys like that. But you do have guys coming over. There's several that are probably going to go like top 15 in next month's draft.
Yeah,
this month's draft now.
Yeah. I haven't even looked at the draft boards lately. Honestly, like I know the Minnesota and Wisconsin guys. That's like Chet Holmgren and Johnny Davis. That's who I'm paying attention to. But yeah, no question. You don't see the high schoolers going. But I would also say that I think overseas, I think they're actually the credibility that it's gaining because of, like you said, overseas fit, Swiss cultures, all these social media pages that are highlighting the overseas game. I actually think there is more popularity than when I first got to Europe amongst it, and there's more of like a cool factor. Like I would say more so than ever. It's like now if you're in the EuroLeague, it's acknowledged as like the second best league in the world, and it's like, all right, if you're in the EuroLeague, then you have talent that you could be in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? It's just for whatever reason you're not there. So I think it has gotten to that point, which is a cool transformation to see since 2012 when I was a youngin' going over there. I can't believe I'm 32, old man. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then you saw like KD. This was probably a month ago now. Went over to watch Mike James in Greece. And Mike James has become like a figurehead of overseas basketball as far as Americans, which is really cool. But those European guys, like you look at maybe the top 3 players in the world right now: Nikola Jokic, back-to-back MVP, Giannis and Luka, all overseas guys.
Yep.
All foreign guys coming into the NBA and just absolutely killing it.
Yeah, that was a hot topic when I think KD touched on that on Twitter, right, or whatever. So it was like it's impressive, especially listen, those Serbian dudes, Yugoslavian dudes, like they think they're the best players in the world. And in Luka and Jokic's case, like a lot of those dudes are coming from, they're probably not Luka and Jokic, they're young, but their uncles, brothers, all that, like they're coming from a war. Like that's the environment they were raised in. So they don't really back down from shit. So it is cool to see the game become global. Giannis is more like, I'd say Giannis's game developed in the States. Yeah. I was in summer league with Giannis in Milwaukee, and he wasn't anywhere near the player he is now. So I would say and he's still talented, but his game is definitely developed in the States. But it's crazy. It is crazy to see the development of the European game, even EuroLeague now, the style of play with guys like Coach Messina, Coach Adaman in Efes, the way they're playing. They're really just hunting guys to a degree. It's more free flowing than ever before. Less sets like it was in traditional European stuff, and you're just finding mismatches and playing fast. And Monaco as well with Mike James and Dwayne Bacon. So it's always interesting to see basketball. When you're in it, to me, basketball seems to migrate the culture west to east. So, and I've been obviously in America at one point, to Europe, to now Japan, and you kind of see the lag, but how everything is catching up. And Japan is probably last, Japan, China, but even over there, it has elements of the NBA game. And like I said, from the time I got to Europe till now, the European game has dramatically changed, specifically in EuroLeague, in terms of pace of play and skill sets and all that.
So they're not hoisting up threes like they show on Swish Cultures and all that stuff.
Nah, I mean
they're
they
not
are
pulling up like Steph.
Well, shoot, some guys are. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't ain't nobody pulling up like Steph. Let's just you know what I'm saying? Just to be clear, but like if you watch Mike James, man, a lot of the stuff he's doing is like it's Kyrie-esque in Europe. Like it's crazy. It's so impressive, man. Like and Dwayne Bacon is playing like a true NBA swingman. Shane and Vasa Micic in FS, like the way they play, really mirror, like, for lack, I don't have a great, but I'll just say like a CJ and a Dame, like just the things that they're doing. So it's definitely growing, definitely changing.
Now, going back to you playing with Giannis in the summer league, I mean, could you have even imagined that he turned into this? Like, I think he's the best basketball player on the on the planet right now, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah, I mean, so the funny thing is, when I went there, a manager at Wisconsin was a video coordinator guy in Milwaukee, and he was like, "Oh, Giannis is gonna be this and that," and he saw it, and I was kind of like, I mean, I think it'll be fine, but like he was like, no, he's gonna win, 4 MVPs, 3 MVPs, and I think I even made a bet. I was like, hell no, like not 3, like okay, 1, but and this was even after summer league. This was like when they were getting knocked out by Boston in the first round, so you could see him progressing. But yeah, in that summer league, and it was 2014, and no, definitely not. And that's the crazy thing about the NBA though, is like just health, timing. Like I was there, and Giannis it was Jabari Parker. He was the number 2 pick, and it was like Jabari was the future, and Giannis was gonna be, he was this upside guy who was supposed to, complement Jabari. Like that was the idea. And it was J Kidd's first year. So then Jabari obviously had all his injury, bad luck, knees and stuff like that, and then Giannis just keeps progressing. And then, whatever, 7 years later, 2-time MVP, NBA champ. So it is really, basketball is just so crazy because so many guys have so much talent. And that's, I guess, kind of the point of our podcast and that Swish is just to highlight. You want to highlight as much talent as you can. Because it's just, to me, as a basketball lover, Pierce, you just love to see all the guys out there doing their thing and them getting notoriety for that.
Now, I want to touch on that and excuse me, in a second, but someone that, I mean, it's not the same, but I mean, you look at like guys that get drafted in the NBA now, 18, 19, right? So these teams are banking on high upside. You look at someone like Anthony Simons. He came out of like the G League, or I think he might have been straight out of IMG. Mm-hmm. Took a couple years to develop, and then he led the Trailblazers in scoring while Dame was out this year. I mean, so you look at guys like that. That's kind of how the NBA is going. Like you're not getting those like 3rd, 4th year guys going top 10 very often.
Yeah, no. I think that we actually just talked about this too on the podcast. Was continuity, and I think in anything you do, continuity is important, whether it's a podcast, whether it's basketball. Like the more time you have to practice something and you have some patience and some understanding that you're going to get better at something, the better you're going to get at it. It's hard to just throw a guy straight out of IMG 17 and by year 3 say, hey, we need you averaging 20 and 10 or 20 and 8 and shooting 47, 38, and 85 splits. Like that's crazy. And like fans think that that's normal. That's not normal. That's crazy. 17, like what was you doing when I was 17? I was, I thought I was pretty good. At 17, I was like hanging out in Wendy's parking lots, like because I thought it was cool. But now, like now you're asking me to run a multi, by the 1920, I have to grow and understand that I'm the face of a multi-million-dollar, sometimes multi-billion-dollar business. Like It's a crazy concept. So I mean, I'd say hats off to Portland to have that foresight and kind of giving him the space and time to develop, and obviously having Dame and CJ kind of allowed them to do that too. But I think stuff like that needs to be the blueprint, because when you see an 18-year-old kid bust and people are saying he's not good enough, to me it's more than likely that he wasn't really given the space and the tools to grow at the rate he should be. And that's not to say that no responsibility is on him, but like, listen, what are we asking of an 18-year-old? And I get the money involved in it, but it's really a crazy notion, to be honest.
Yeah, you have to have, especially from a fan's perspective. I can't talk as a player, but I mean, I try to have reasonable expectations of guys that I'm a fan of, or they go to a team that I'm a fan of. Like someone that's going from like 20 to 30-ish, they're not going to be LeBron, Giannis, whatever. I mean, they're going to be that guy that's coming off the bench in the playoffs, going off, scoring 20 one night and get your team a win, I mean, you can't. And then you look at all these quote unquote busts, like, I mean, the popular ones are like Anthony Bennett and Greg Oden. Although Greg Oden's was injury related. I mean, all those guys are uber talented. I just think that they don't get the right fits coming out, and then they're screwed, and they have that stigma attached to them the rest of their career.
Nah, I agree 100%. And I mean, like I said, like some of the culpability's got to be on them, like,
yeah,
because you do have to understand, what you're walking into, but people also have to make it very clear to you what you're walking into and have to almost force you to understand. And to me, that's on the organization side, where it's like, yo, like, this is what it is. You need to grow up. And if you can't do it, then you're going to be out of here. Like, that needs to be a very clear conversation. Where I've never been in that position per se, but it's like, to me, it seems it's more like coddling, where it's like, oh, like, you're the man, like all these good things and all that. And the next thing you know, you're not doing what you're supposed to. And it's like, well, now you're, damaged goods. And so it's a fine line, man. Basketball is a nasty business. The law is a wicked business, man. And from a fan perspective, because I mean, I'm a fan as well, and I was honest. Most of the players were fans before we were players, and it's like most of the time you just see the finished product and you're like, oh, well, that was easy. Like I'll be watching at the trade deadline. It's like, oh, they'll flip a 3-team trade between New York, Chicago, and Miami. And, this dude went here and it's just like, from a fan perspective, it's like, oh yeah, well, why wouldn't that happen? That was, that that makes sense. But all the work that goes in behind the scenes with the salary cap and moving guys around, and like, it's a wicked game, man. It's a wicked game. Yeah.
It is crazy. Thank God for like the insiders and stuff that
are
actually talking, like, break that stuff down. For us dumb people that don't really understand all the money, and
myself included, man. Like that's a different. I mean, that's because really that's a different part of basketball that affects basketball players. So I think it's important for players to try and understand that. But I mean, look, that's not what you're paid to do. So
now going back. I mean, what do you hope to accomplish, and like, what do you want the focus to be of your guys' show?
Man, so yeah, we've kicked it around a lot, and with the role player, we've had different hosts and all that. So it's nice to seem like we have a combination that's going to stick for a minute. But for us, someone said that they were kind of doing what Slam did back in the day, kind of telling stories of through the magazine, telling stories of guys with context to current NBA stories or European stories or whatever, and then just how. Pretty much having a guest on and seeing how they fit in the global landscape of basketball. And we want to make sure to highlight these people, but also get their perspective on something like Jaylen Brown signing with Donda Sports. We want their perspective on that, but then also how, that move by Jaylen Brown might affect them, or, so for instance, Shane, how important representation is for Shane or something like that, or for Deshaun. And where that's going to go in the next couple of years. So it's a fun experience, but I'd say, yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to highlight, is just how each guest fits in individually to the global picture, and then just touch on all those topics.
And that's the key for like an up and coming podcast. Is something that I've had to kind of figure out, because I was just doing like, okay, like, just tell me your experiences, whatever. And now I'm trying to like talk about the finals and talk about the Super Bowl and whatever's going on in the NFL and things like that. I think it's really important for I mean, and you guys figured that out, but it's really important for shows and podcasts to kind of go in that route that you guys have kind of figured out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like one thing I like about what you do is you keep everything like super conversational. So it's like it's almost like an interview, but you want to get everybody's perspectives, because we have 3 people on there. So, but yeah, definitely touching on, at some point, hopefully we'll touch on NFL stuff. We'll have an NFL guy come on and talk about NBA stuff because I always like those podcasts like on I Am Athlete when they have a basketball guy on. Like those are my favorite ones of those. So yeah, just really trying to paint a picture of how these individuals fit into the global landscape of sports, but then also how sports fits into the global economy too is one thing that, we're going to continue to try and paint too. Cause I mean, at the end of the day, the NBA and NFL, they're just sports, but there's a lot of money involved in them. And there's a lot of people's lives who are affected by these sports. I had a friend who's in finance and he told me like, no one cares about sports. And at the time I was like, yeah, you're probably right. They don't. And I would probably agree. Like most people don't care about, what you're doing. Like most people don't care about an athlete once they're done playing. Just kind of like whatever, or even when you're out of their sight. But, there's a lot of families and a lot of people affected by whether Giannis makes his free throws and the Bucks win the game. You know what I'm saying? Like if Giannis goes 1 for 10 or Giannis goes 17 for 19, like there's a lot of people that are affected by that from an emotional standpoint, financial standpoint, job standpoint. And I think that's the cool part about sports is like there is just a lot of intertwining. It's intertwined with our daily lives in so many different ways that people wouldn't even think about.
And that's why people are so passionate about it.
Yeah,
because they, especially those bettors, dude. I don't know if you're into that. Oh my god,
that's a whole different ball game. That's a whole different ball game.
I've tried to get into it a couple of times. I can't. I pulled all my money out, and I'm like deleting these apps. I'm done. It's wraps.
The betting is hilarious. I've had people hit me up like for games, like cussing me out after the game, and then I'm like, damn, who is this? Like, do I know this? And then, like 24 hours will go by or 12 hours will go by and like I'll respond back to them like, what's your problem? And they'll respond back 12 hours later and be like, my bad, man. I was just betting on the game. And like, I end up having just a regular conversation with him. Like, I mean, you just called my mother a hoe. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we not cool. Like, but it's entertaining for sure.
Yeah. I mean, back like when I was growing up watching sports, no one even brought up gambling. And now ESPN puts it on like with every little thing. Oh, this is brought to you by DraftKings or whatever betting service they use or whatever. And now it's like, it's insane. Everyone's doing it.
It's great because the commentators are aware of it. It's like when something happens, they're like, oh, that's going to make a lot of people mad. You know what I'm saying? Like a late basket or something like that. It is nuts, man. But I think that's the same thing about like specifically the NBA in general. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, it was like you realize the NBA was colossal to me, but like, I mean, they were making money, but they weren't making a lot of money. It wasn't like the money compared to the money they're making now. Like basketball now is truly colossal. It's big business. And I watched that Magic documentary in the Winning Time one too. And I don't think that as a kid I realized that we weren't very far removed from the NBA flopping. Like they talked about that flopping in like 79, 80. And I'm loving the NBA in like 96, 97. Like that's not that long in terms of business, from a business standpoint. And, you had, this guy, Tim Connolly, that just signed as a GM with the Wolves. He's getting paid more than, I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's getting paid more than Ron Artest was on the Lakers in 2009 when they won a championship. So it's like, it's for me, that's context of like, damn, that was 12 years ago. So the rate at which the game has expanded in the past like 10 years is pretty wild.
Well, I'm kind of a Knicks fan. I think I'm gonna switch my allegiance, but I mean,
you ain't no Knicks fan. You just switching your allegiance like that.
I don't care at this point. James Dolan is He's the worst. But he gave Phil Jackson $12 million to try to put in a damn triangle that hadn't worked in 10 years. And then had to give him all that money. Gave him like 60 over 5. That's insane. Yeah. He's making more than probably half the roster.
And again, like, that's crazy to think about how big the game is expanded, but also then it's also crazy to think about, like, we just had Shane on, and Shane was part of that. He went to New York and he was like, I mean, look at me, I don't fit in the triangle. Like, so just those decisions, and then like just it's all just connected. It's like the organization is now responsible for that guy's career not working out because you're putting him in a position where he can't succeed, putting him in a position where he can't succeed. And then now it's like their families are obviously worse off and all that. So it's just, it's crazy. It's really crazy how little decisions affect so many people in a game, a basketball game. So
no doubt. And that's, I mean, we don't really think about that very often.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it until just now, like talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Like one guy's decision to hold someone out or run a specific play or whatever, it's impacting millions and millions of lives that nobody will ever really hear about if you're not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, honestly.
It is. I think people think about it like, you only think about stuff like that maybe in terms of like politics and like the president, when the president does this, because I think that stuff actually matters. Like, at the end of the day, what I'll say is that it's like, you know, when you're making $10 million to play basketball, it like people aren't going to care, which rightfully so. Even if you're making $500,000 to play basketball, people are going to be like, all right, well, you play a game. But when basketball is such a short shelf life, it's like that stuff means a lot to the people that are involved. And, you know, even as a player, the older I get, the more that I like, you really can't get away from thinking like that. But growing up, it was like, it's basketball. Like, if I'm gonna go out and hoop, and if I do what I'm supposed to, if I'm an All-American or whatever 2 times, I'm gonna be in the NBA. Simple as that. Like, and it just doesn't work like that. There's just a lot of moving pieces. So,
okay, so we're running shorter on time. So I wanted to get to the NBA Finals.
We're good. You could add time too if you need. We're good.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
I mean, NBA Finals starting. By the time this comes out, it'll be starting tonight. Off the bat, I mean, what do you think about this matchup? The last time they matched up in the finals was Bill Russell and Wilt, right?
Yeah, San Francisco.
That's insane.
Yeah, San Francisco.
I mean, so what do you think about this like kind of historic matchup?
Yeah, I've been getting killed because I think the Celtics are gonna win. I think that you know what I'm saying, people calling me crazy, like it's hard for me. I don't know if it's because Golden State, I don't think Golden State is as good as their previous teams, their previous championship teams. So I don't know if I'm like holding that as the benchmark. But for me, I just don't think that they're that good, Golden State. Like, I don't think that they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that they're as good as people are making them out to be. Like, yeah, people talking about, oh, it's a new dynasty again. Like, nah, like Steph is 34, Wiggins about to be up out of there. Like, I think they got some favorable matchups in the playoffs with Ja getting hurt and stuff like that. And I think Boston is big, can defend, they can score. But so I hope I'm right, honestly, because I think Boston's going to win in 6. I think Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart, if Robert Williams is healthy, I think they'll be able to guard Golden State. And I just don't see Golden State being able to match that physicality that Boston brings to the table. So, but then again, like Wiggins is going to be an X factor. If Wiggins can do, what he did in the last series, then okay, yeah, Golden State looks a whole lot better. But I think it looks a lot different when you got Jaylen Brown or Al Horford guarding you as opposed to Luka. So we'll just kind of see. I think Boston has the ability to kind of go big and small. Where you can put Rob Williams out there on Draymond and Horford out there on Wiggins and see what happens. Whereas like if Golden State goes to Looney and Draymond, I don't think that's necessarily an advantage for them because Boston can stay big like that. Again, Boston can go small with Grant Williams and Horford. So I think it's a solid matchup for Boston, man. Honestly, the one thing they don't have is that experience. Golden State has that crazy experience. You got Steph Curry. Shit, anything's possible. So,
yeah, I mean, The matchup I'm excited to watch is Wiggins and I mean, do you think Wiggins will guard Tatum?
I think you have to. I think Wiggins has to
That
guard Tatum.
that
It's just,
matchup is going to be insane.
yeah. I mean, Iguodala's supposed to come back, maybe, right? Did I see that?
Yeah.
Um, so that'll be another body to throw at him, but it's just like Clay. I'm sure Clay will see him some, but I don't know that Clay is still the same defender that he was.
Mm.
So yeah, I would imagine Wiggins will see Tatum. Jordan Poole has to be able to come in and match intensity defensively because I mean offensively he's gonna be great. But
Oh, I mean, defensively for the Celtics, they got Marcus Smart, they got Jaylen Brown. Tatum can do something. Horford and Robert Williams. I mean, even Grant Williams. It will be tough for Golden State. I just don't know how much. I mean, if Steph gets hot, it could be wraps.
listen, if Steph gets hot, it's wraps for anybody. So that's like yeah, and that that could always happen. But the Warriors haven't really played. I don't think the Warriors have played anybody with as much bite as Boston. Like I thought if Ja stayed healthy, I thought that series was going 7. And I thought Memphis might even be able to get him, especially since they had home court advantage. And even without Ja, like Memphis should have tied the series in Golden State. It should have been 2-2 going back to Memphis, even without Ja. So, and Memphis kind of matched their intensity, their physicality, their pace. Like they did all that. They just didn't have their, they didn't have their ace. But so I think Boston has the ability, like I said, to play slow, play fast. Marcus Smart, I would guess, is going to see Steph a lot, and hopefully he's healthy from his ankle. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just like Boston. I think I like Boston. They're hot. They're the hottest team in the NBA. Have been for like 5 months now. The only thing I'd say is like that experience factor. If that creeps in, which it very well could, then yeah, obviously the edge goes to Golden State. But I just think Boston is the best team in basketball right now.
I do agree with you that Golden State kind of got a lucky hand with Ja getting hurt, and then they got a blessing not having to play the Suns. They played Luka and the Mavs. I mean, the Mavs have Luka, and that's it. I mean, they don't have that. I mean, Brunson is a phenomenal player, but I just don't see him making that much of an impact as opposed to what a Devin Booker and CP3 could have done or things like that.
Well, yeah, and I think that matchup was just an awful match. Like I like Brunson. I think Brunson's really good. Obviously, not having Tim Hardaway doesn't help, but I think that in that series, the problem and that's going to be Luka's problem moving forward. Is just like at some point you have to balance out, your offensive and defensive contribution. I'm a big James Harden fan, so I think that James Harden is even a little bit better on defense than Luka was. Like Luka, I mean, and it's understandable. Like the way he plays offense, you can't. It's ridiculous to think he's going to play defense, and it's not like he's athletic. Like Harden has the athletic factor, where but yeah, like Dallas has to balance out their their distribution offensively, or they have to get a rim protector that's going to hide Luka a little bit better. But because I mean Wiggins is going out there getting 15, 20 a night as the fourth option pretty efficiently, and it's just like. Against the Warriors, ain't no way. Ain't. If Wiggins getting 15 to 20, shooting whatever I don't know what his splits were, but 50% and like having the impact he did, and then he's guarding the way he did, like there's no way you could beat them. You gotta limit somebody. So.
Yeah, because they're gonna kill you in what 4 or 5 spots if you include Jordan Poole in there.
Yeah.
I mean, so you slow down 2 of them. Clay has an off series. Steph has an off series, and it's wide open. I could see the Celtics running them in 5 or 6 if that happens.
Listen, I'm with you. Like 5, only because of home court. 5 is going to be tough because that means they're winning 2 in Golden State. Yeah. But like, yeah, I'm with you. Like 6, I could definitely see Boston in 6 and shit. Like you said, 5 if those things happen. But I really do. I really like Boston. I really do.
But it is interesting. I mean, this year more than the past 10 years where LeBron was in the finals. I mean, it was pretty wide open coming into the playoffs, in my opinion. it was sort of like, okay, whoever wins Bucks and Celtics is probably going to go to the finals. But then the Heat, I mean, they took that series to 7. So, I mean, Jimmy Butler hits that 3 and we're having a whole different conversation, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I do think the Celtics were a little, I mean, because they got blown out by 20 a couple times by the Heat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think again, the Heat bring a level of physicality that forced the Celtics into a lot of turnovers, which was their kind of Achilles heel in that series. When they got to turning the ball over, the Heat were dragging them. I don't know that Golden State can turn them over like that. And Golden State's turnover prone themselves. So, I just think that again, the physicality of Boston, I think they'll be able to take care of the ball a little bit better. And if that happens, then their ability to play in the half court, but also, get easy baskets from their defense, I think just kind of gives them an advantage. But again, I'm talking all this shit. Golden State's probably going to win in 4. So, but yeah, that's just how I see it.
Which team do you think it'd mean more to win?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a great question. In the landscape of the NBA right now, where the NBA sits, I think it's more impactful for Boston to win. I think that if Boston wins, you're kind of looking at truly like, well, shit, what's next for them? Like, yeah, Horford's old. Horford's 35, but Robert Williams is a stud. Marcus Smart is a stud. Jason, like they literally have a 4-guy core, and Grant Williams too, 5 guys that are gonna got to be under 20, 27.
Yeah,
whatever it is. And it's like, man, how many times can they run this back? Obviously, they're gonna have competition in Brooklyn and all that, and the East is getting better. But I think right now, like you said, it's wide open in terms of teams, but I think the NBA is also kind of looking for that next up type of superstar. And Giannis is it right now, but I mean, how long is Giannis going to play at this level at 27, 28, the way he plays? So, between like Luka and Jason Tatum and Booker, Boston, I just think, has the best team right now when you look at it. Things change, but I think Boston would set them up to really be like, especially Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, to be like that next great duo. Whereas, Steph and Clay, if they win, it just kind of solidifies their legacy. But they're Hall of Famers as is. So
I didn't hate the Warriors as much as everybody else did. I also don't hate LeBron like everybody else does either.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be a really cool story for them to come back and win. But I'm an indie guy, so I want to see Brad Stevens get one his first year up in the front office.
Yeah.
I could see it going either way.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I think it's gonna be a great series. I really do think it's gonna be a great series. But yeah, no, I didn't hate Golden State either. I love, I was cheering for Bron, so I guess I hated Golden State because I'm a Bron fan, but more so than Steph and KD. But I mean, watching those series was crazy, man. Even like the level of play, even though like it's crazy to think that Golden State really won those series like 8-1. Like they really dominated the series, but like LeBron was so good, or it was like, damn, this is competitive high level basketball. So
I think Draymond's the reason why people hated Golden State, because Draymond would run his mouth, and I love him personally. I love his podcast too. I think he's changed in the game.
Yeah,
he's insane. But
yeah,
I mean, him running his mouth and then Stephen Clay being cocky, whatever. I think that's probably the reason people hated them.
Man, I think you're right. I think Steph got a little arrogant too in that little run, like like you said. That's probably so. But I mean, shit, I would. You can't help but to feel yourself a little bit when you're made like 2-time back-to-back MVPs. Like, all right, man. Like, so I mean, I understood it, but yeah, Draymond's dope, man. He's dope because I think he understands kind of who he is, what he is, and how he fits in, and he takes a lot of pride in it, as he should. Because like I think now with the stats that he puts up, I think he understands he went to a perfect fit for his game. But I think people also disrespect him by saying like, oh well, anybody could do it. Like, nah, like to do what he's doing takes a certain type of skill set, personality, mindset, all that. Like it's a rare. He has a rare combination of kind of like dog in him, but also he kind of takes a back seat to these guys that are perennial, that are Hall of Famers and all time greats from a skill perspective. And he's going to be a Hall of Famer because of it. So I think he probably accepted that and embraced that early on. And I think that really made his career. And I don't think most people have the foresight to buy into something like that. So, because like I said before, we're all alpha. Draymond's an alpha. So for him to find his role amongst them and become the alpha in that group is pretty crazy.
I mean, Rodman wasn't the alpha that those Bulls teams, but I mean, Draymond and Rodman, you can draw so many comparisons between those two guys and like what they do, what they sacrifice, and all that.
And I think like Draymond even maybe more so than Rodman as like the vocal leader of Golden State. Because I mean, I'm sure Rodman was a leader on that group, but it was still MJ. Like I don't think Steph is quite he's not the overpowering figure. He doesn't seem to be. I mean, I wouldn't know, but he doesn't seem to be like the overpowering figure. Like MJ had people calling him Black Jesus. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like literally a messiah. So I don't think Steph has quite that presence that MJ had. So I think Draymond brings some of that presence to Golden State.
No doubt. Well, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Again, thank you so much for coming on.
No doubt.
I really appreciate you coming on, and then I love the podcast. Keep doing what you guys are doing. It's awesome to watch, and I'm sure we'll reconnect sometime down the road.
Whenever, man. Whenever. You got it. I appreciate you having me on, bro.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
All right.